Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper, best-selling author of Life After Breath and the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Today on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder, I'm honored to have my dear friends and fellow colleagues, Colleen Vanderzyden and Gregg Unterberger. Colleen is a registered Lilydale and evidential medium, as well as life coach, and Gregg is a fellow therapist, regressionist, and profound healer. And they're both wonderful authors. They're going to be talking about their books, their work, and more importantly, the group that they recently started called the Soul Empowerment Community, which is very much needed in today's times. So I really strongly encourage you to listen to this conversation. If you do enjoy it, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button, share your comment, as well as hit that subscribe button. You could also follow me as well as my YouTube channel on mindbodyspirit.fm, where you can get the audio syndicated version of this podcast. So without further ado, let's bring a warm welcome to Colleen and Gregg on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Colleen Vanderzyden and Gregg Unterberger, thank you so much for being here as my honored guest on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. It's good to see you both.
Yeah, nice to see you. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, thrilled to be with you.
Yeah, and for viewers who aren't didn't hear the good word, Greg and I just came back from a wonderful convention, wonderful workshop at the A.R.E, the Souls in Transit workshop, and Greg just gave a stellar workshop that really hoped to emphasize some of the groundbreaking work that he has done. And Colleen, a year ago, I presented in Lilydale, and I had the distinct honor to get a life-altering reading from. So Colleen is just, they're both this rock star couple that we really hope to really highlight. But you guys could probably speak for yourselves in a different way than I can. Could you first and foremost introduce yourselves to, my audience, but also kind of tell us how you met? Because not only are the roles that you do very unique, but also you're this tremendous power couple that is really making a mark and a difference here, on the planet. So just maybe kind of uh, pique our curiosity to viewers as to if they didn't hear about you, a little bit about yourselves and how you connected.
Yeah, do we wanna talk a little bit about who we are first? I guess we do because it
Sure.
kinda
Yeah.
connects, right? So, I'm as you said, a medium. I'm also a life coach and a spiritual teacher and a podcast host and author, all of those things, right? And do you wanna mention yours, and then I'll tell the good
Why,
story?
well, yes, I'm an extra large, and no, I'm a psychotherapist, and that's one word. Obviously, a spiritual seeker all my life, a student of the Edgar Cayce work and Course in Miracles, those kinds of things. And the author of The Quickening, of course, leaping ahead in your spiritual journey.
Which leads into the story of how we met, because I was at the A.R.E. Several years ago now, I think 2018 actually, and I was taking a mediumship workshop with some phenomenal people, and I went in the bookstore and I happened to come across his handy dandy book, and
Oh,
they have
got it here
great
too.
books. The Quickening, look at it's everywhere, and so I have, as the spiritual teachers, we have lots and lots of books, and we love reading, we love learning. So I picked up his book and I just glanced through it, and then I started reading it while I was there. And after I came home, I finished it, and that's abnormal because there's so many books out there, and we start them, we don't finish it. So I finished the book, and so I contacted him, and I wanted to go to a workshop or something to see what he was doing. And it was through Facebook. It'd take a little while to. For him to see my message, but eventually we just became Facebook friends. And then in 2020, I sent him a video I thought he would find interesting. And we started chatting on Facebook and talking about his book. And at that time, I was writing the rough draft for my book. Well, to hold that up too while we're at it, Courageously You. And then we just kept chatting through 2020. And then, of course, we had COVID happening during this time exactly. And our we ended up talking on Zoom for like 3 hours a day. And finally, at the end of September, we both drove to North Carolina to meet each other. So like halfway, him from Texas and me from New York, and met there.
In the middle of COVID, masks and all.
Yeah, it was really interesting because it was really nice to actually meet somebody that you could talk to about spiritual things And that made a huge difference. We really got to know each other first. So it's very strange because, I mean, how did that all happen, right? What are the chances I'm going to find somebody and marry somebody on top of it from Texas? Unlikely, but here we are.
I guess sometimes expect the unexpected. And in a way, do you feel guided that there was these droplets from the universe to get you to go to Greg's wonderful workshop and pick up the quickening? Do you feel that there were forces maybe guiding you together to meet, or was just kind of random, happenstances? Or do you feel that
Yeah.
strong presence of guidance?
Had to be divine order, divine timing and stuff, because that doesn't even make sense logically. It just doesn't make sense. So it had to be like, what were the chances I was at that workshop learning about mediumship and then reading his book about all this spiritual stuff that I found interesting. And and then when we talked, and even just the chatting back and forth in the beginning it was just a different level of communication. I think that's
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, I think a lot mo there are probably people out there watching that, if you have a partner or good friends that you can talk about this with, it's really, really nice because it's such an integral part of our lives, and to be able to talk about past lives, and Colleen goes, "Oh, yeah, sure," and she talks about talking to spirits, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay," and neither one of us bat an eyelash,
Yeah.
that's someone that you don't find just anywhere, so uh,
Yeah.
yeah, started out as just a really, really good friendship, and then we both started going, "What the heck's going on here?"
Yeah, real
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and I come across so many people who say, I am very into this stuff, but I don't think I'll ever find someone who's interested in it, or I need to find someone who's polar opposite to me to balance things out. What do you say to people who are, very much, like you guys, like very tuned in and wanna meet someone? Like, you guys, you were able to do it, you went to the other not the other side of it, but you know what I'm saying, you were able to walk the walk. To people listening, what did it teach you about, potentially law of attractions, or just, meeting someone who was like-minded and, having that work?
Well, I'm gonna, as you guys probably know from the introduction, I'm a longtime student of the Edgar Cayce work, and, the famous psychic, who's associated with the Association for Research and Enlightenment. And Edgar, one time a woman said, "Will I ever meet my soulmate?" And Edgar said, "Yeah, there's about 30 of them." So part of it is the idea that there's just one and only one, I think is erroneous. Like, oh, if I miss my chance with this person, then it won't work. But I do think there's a lot in following synchronicities, and I think both of us do that. Like, where is this going? What is this about? How did this drop in my lap? I don't know about you, Colleen. If a book shows up in my life like 3 or 4 times in a row, somebody mentions it, or I see it in the library, or I hear a podcast about it, it's like, okay, I'm buying that book, I guess. You know, what about you?
Well, what I would say, because having been through some interesting relationships, we'll say, and I was done. I was done, right? I was tired of looking. I wasn't going to do it anymore. And I know a lot of people who are on the spiritual path. We do want to meet somebody who understands us, of course, and where we're safe to say what we want to say and be ourselves. And so I would tell people something along the lines of, you know what, just go live your life, have as much fun as possible, because then your vibration is going to be open, accepting, higher. And so then the right person will come to you if it's meant to be. And
Yeah.
as I can remember just going, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this anymore. And I was done. I mean, literally, I was done when we connected. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's not worth my effort or time. And so I understand the frustrations of
We're
so
just
many people.
chatting online. We're just friends.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening here. We're fine. You're absolutely safe.
But I really liked your book. And, and so, and he helped me with my book too, because I would ask him some questions, just what do you think about this? Or just giving me suggestions and stuff. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Which the answer to usually is, "I love it, and it sounds great."
Right? Yeah, so it's frustrating, I think, for a lot of people, especially spiritually inclined people, but there are more men who are waking up now, and understanding that there is more to life and, talking about the soul and being empowered and stuff, a lot of them are more open to it than it used to be. So
Yeah.
so there are people out there.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
people crave Jacob, you and I were talking about, when we are in Virginia Beach, the epidemic of loneliness, which is not just an expression. Literally, the Surgeon General has pointed this out. That's gonna lead to, over the next 5, 10 years, is increasingly leading to higher rates of depression and anxiety. People want and crave connection, period. But especially, what we heard over and over from, people, our clients and our workshop participants is, where do we meet people that are of like mind? Where can I talk to, have earnest, real discussions about this, and not get laughed at or criticized or worse, told that I'm going to be eternally damned or something? Where I can speak freely about this and be appreciated.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I guess in the Jewish tradition, there was a figure called Abraham that had his tent opened in all four corners for people to come in, and it was very welcoming. And I see the two of you following in that same trajectory, because I come across this all the time where people may feel disenfranchised or ostracized or misunderstood. Maybe they're living in a part of the United States or the world that just stigmatizes this. Could you tell us a little bit about, and we'll get into some of the work that you do, but on a macro level, you're up to some really amazing things. Could you tell us a little bit about this project that you have that really invites and opens itself up to seekers along the path to find community?
Yeah, you start.
Well, a third of Americans report that they are spiritual but not religious. And for better for worse, and I mean, there are good news and bad news. People are leaving the churches in droves and synagogues, and and they are seeking something that is meaningful and real for them. And so, what we kind of, upon hearing that, what we kind of do is throw open the doors and try to create a home for them. And I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so we created the soul empowerment community, so we could bring together these like-minded people, so people could be safe to be themselves and be with people who actually get them. And it has been amazing. We have the most wonderful people in there who are so kind and loving, and it's also an opportunity not only for the connection but for further learning. So we have lots of workshops that people can go to. We'll have 2 live events a month, that kind of thing. Go ahead.
And these, I was just going to say, these are online, so that we have
Yep.
people in the United States and Canada from all over, that are tuning in, and we're discussing things like dream interpretation. Colleen is teaching some intuition skills and mediumship. It's kind of unique in that, because I come from an orientation as a therapist, although I'm very interested in spirituality, mine's kind of the science bailiwick, and Colleen's is the mystical or the spiritual. And so we've often joked with people, or people have said, "This is kind of cool. It's like having a therapist and a medium in my hip pocket." And then there's a community of seekers that can talk and joke, and well, what do you think about this particular style of meditation, or who do you think you were in your past lives? And nobody, everyone supports each other, and not everybody's not in lockstep about their beliefs, but there's plenty of room for people to share their own journey, and also to learn. Because the other thing we discovered is a lot of people are going, okay, well, if I'm not going to a church, a regular pace, how do I learn more about spirituality, about a direct relationship to the universe or the divine? And what we want to do is help fill in those gaps for people.
Yeah, and we do a lot of, the nice thing about the community is there's a lot of personal touch and personal guidance there. I'll do soul guidance sessions where I just let my guide say whatever he wants to say, and, and then lots of how-tos as well, how to handle difficult people, how to stay in your soul's power when you're dealing with narcissists or whatever.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so practical, spiritual, and fun, I think.
Yeah. Want to make sure that this works. And so a couple of times a month, we're doing live online sessions, and people can ask questions and interact. And we've had some of the most stellar guests, like, what was his name? Jacob Cooper, that guy that wrote the book, Near Death Experience. We had him. People as famous as that come into the community and allow us to interview them. And it really is cool because, maybe there's 15 or 20 or 30 people, 50 people, and you can ask questions. Normally if you attend something with a couple hundred people, you're lucky to get a word in edgewise or get your questions answered. But a lot of direct interaction with our guests and with us. And then we do 2 in-person retreats as well,
Mm.
places like Florida and Austin and Niagara Falls, twice a year. And those are free to the people that are in the subscription network, the Soul Empowerment community. And so we get to come together and meet in person some too. It's really fun.
So part of our reason for starting it, I think, too, is that in some ways it was a bit of a calling, if you will. That how can we take our combined energies and help people have a better, happier, soul empowered life, And I've been helping people for forever, to live their dreams as a coach or a medium or a teacher. And he's been doing the same thing. And it's like we both have this deep desire to make a difference and help people. And so this was a way to come together, and he can talk about the science stuff while I go, and then I can talk about, "Well, so my dead person said this to me," and everybody's like, the science people are going, "Whoa." So yeah, so it's quite a nice mix, I guess.
Yeah,
Well,
you're
you know
able.
this from
Yeah.
your work with NDEs that now there's so much research and science that backs up a lot of the things that we've been talking about in spiritual circles for years. So much more so than 15 or 20 years ago. So it's exciting to have to build that bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fun group.
Oh, it sounds and I've gotten some wonderful feedback from it and will continue to refer a lot of my clients because community is so important. And it seems like you really are able to put your brand and your talents and your passions and really cast a big, large umbrella for those to come from various different backgrounds or just orientations. So I love what you're doing right now. I'll make sure to include, all of the links and the information at the closing. Now, Greg, I just wanted to ask you because when you present, obviously you're electric, if all else fails, you definitely could pass as a stand-up comic, as interviewers, say, but I don't think, I think you're awesome as is. But could you tell us a little bit about, the work that you do? Because it's fascinating. You've been doing this, what, like over 25 years now, and just kind of like a little bit about the work that you do, some of the groundbreaking innovations that have been featured in the quickening, and what are some of, like, the coolest things that you've seen, doing the work that you do? Because I've imagined you've seen some, well, I'll keep it PC, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, Pa part of what the quickening, leaping ahead in your spiritual journey is about is that there are faster ways to move ahead on our spiritual journey. I think in the West, we have this, sense, that you have to earn everything and you have to, like, meditate. And by the way, I am not taking anything away from a regular discipline of meditation or yoga. I am saying that we don't need to absolutely stop there, and we're so identified with a work ethic. It's like, well, if it's not hard and I'm not sweating and it's not incredibly difficult, well, then it doesn't count. Okay. Because we have new technologies and new techniques, including at least a couple that I've developed that can really move us forward. We know that direct experiences or direct contact with the divine or the universe, powerful transformative experiences can take us from here to here without having to take the steps, sort of a quantum leap, if you will. And so, what the quickening does is explores things like past life regression. It explores things like transpersonal breath work, which is a style of breathing and that includes real powerful music that allow people to have psychedelic or mystical experiences without dropping any acid and without having to practice years and years of meditative experience or fly to Brazil to do ayahuasca. That can be done, right here, right now in the West. And people have mediumship experiences. People remember past lives, all kinds of interesting things. So there are faster methods for really making spiritual progress than simply intellectual study or even meditative practice. And I think that's exciting for people that are seeking and they want a deeper connection to their soul or the divine.
Yeah. What was the tipping point or as well, like, inspirational forces behind the quickening for you? Like, were you just kind of like seeing things around you and just be like, it doesn't seem right, or right now the times are a little bit different and people need different things. Like, what was that tipping point for you to say, you know what, I had this idea, I got to get it out there, and there's some missing link that's not being addressed in the community.
Well, I'm an international field presenter for Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, and I would lecture about these techniques and offer workshops. And as I did that, Jacob, it was really interesting because I thought, well, these are people that have studied the work of Edgar Cayce, which is, includes past lives and karma and things like that. And much to my amazement, even though they were a worldly educated audience, most of the people, when I mentioned these techniques, they said, "We've never heard of this." Well, where is your book? Where can we find out more about this? And so out of that, I wrote The Quickening and made that information more available to people. And we are beginning this fall, beginning to train other people in one of the new techniques I developed called spiritual activation that makes prior spiritual experiences available to people to re-experience, not just imagine or think about, but to literally go back in and touch into the experience emotionally and physically, and sometimes even go deeper than the original experience. So someone could come to me with a near-death experience, and they could relive the experience or aspects of the experience without having to be near death, of course. So it's really exciting to see the work progress and for people to participate in it. And sure enough, they are having the same kinds of experiences that the book promised that they would. Transcendent spiritual experiences that, at the risk of sounding like hyperbole, are literally life-changing. Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
and
very
Jacob, you
good.
know that you do
Uh, uh,
past life regression, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Not as long as you. I mean, you've been around the block, definitely a lot longer than I have, so power to you. But I love the work that you do because it really fits the speed of society where it's a little bit of a microwavable society that wants kind of like instant things. And at times spiritual teachers will say, no, it doesn't work that way. You got to do step one to step 100. And I think your work really matches the moment and where people are wired, where you're able to have these instantaneous, enlightening experiences, and it's accessible, and there's a method behind it, and I love what you're doing. It's very innovative, and different. So power to you for putting that out there. Do you feel anyone could connect or have a quickening, or does it take a special evolved soul to have these experiences or this form of awareness?
I think spirit or the divine is available to all of us, at all times. There may be some necessary preliminary work that needs to be done. Some of the techniques in the book have to be facilitated, but nonetheless, they're powerful and they don't take years of practice or anything. Others can be pursued on the reader's own, and they can practice them or work with the ideas in that to leap ahead on their own time and on their own journey without assistance or facilitation. So, yeah, I think spirit is wanting to talk to us or wanting to give us feedback, but we do need to learn how to tune in. And also, I think different techniques work better for different people,
Uh,
you know? Somebody might have a powerful past life regression, someone else wants to do breath work with me.
yeah.
Someone else wants to do spiritual activation, and they click with that. So kind of finding your own doorway in. For music, for example, yoga is a doorway for a lot of people.
Mhm. Yeah, and Casey really emphasizes, music therapy a lot, how that takes us, from the finite to the infinite. So I love that you're really following with a lot of his teachings and implementing it in your own style, for certain. Uh, Being doing this and seeing thousands of clients, is there a particular case that really like jumps to your mind that kind of just I would say maybe, like, got you to take a step back and say, "Whoa, like, this is new, like, I don't know what this is," or "This really blew my doors off," kinda thing in the moment where you're just, like, just didn't have words for it or just was something totally different than the norm.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot honestly, there are a lot to choose from. I've seen some pretty
Yeah.
wild stuff that, seems like it'll be out of a science fiction book or, a book about miracles or something. But one story comes to mind. I was doing a past life regression with a woman, and she was afraid of her dentist. And there was something in particular about when he came into work on her mouth and he had a mask on. And there was something about that mask that really terrified her. And as like most typical therapists do, I started by asking, well, is there anything, did you have a bad experience in your childhood, at the dentist or with a doctor? And no, no, no. And we couldn't find anything in her current life. And she was open to past life regression. So I regressed her back and they gave her the instructions to go to the lifetime where this phobia or fear originated. And she, of course, this is 45 minutes in. It does sound like 2 minutes. It makes it sound like it when I tell the story, but 45 minutes in, I've got her really deep in hypnosis, and she has a memory of running, and she's just smiling, and she's doing her hands like this, even though she's seated in my office, and she's 30 something years old. She's got this great big grin on her face. She's, I'm running, and we're playing chase, and it's so much fun. And she just kept saying that over and over, and she would laugh and everything. She's clearly really deep in another native experience of some kind, some sort of tribal experience. And I said, where are your parents? I said, where are your mom and dad? And she says, well, they're all my mom and dad, which totally flummoxed me. Like, what do you mean they're all their mom and dad? And she said, well, all the elders look after me. And I had no, in the West, in 2025, you have mom and dad, and they're the ones that look after you. But in a tribal setting, everybody is mom and dad. And then finally she said, oh, you mean the ones that gave birth? Oh, they're over there. There was absolutely no real distinction, which was kind of mind-blowing to me. And also the simplicity, she's about 7 or 8. And as we progressed in the regression, it turned out she got very, very sick. And of course, they brought in a local witch doctor or medicine man, and he had rattles and he had these horrible masks on. And the idea was to scare the demons out of her. Well, it absolutely terrified her. Okay, in that lifetime, and she wound up dying. And so I took her through her death, which sounds odd, but of course, if we're spirit, we're eternal. I took her through her passing, and I didn't know what to do. How was I going to resolve this? And I thought, I want you to see if you can find the medicine man who tried to save you. And I get choked up talking about this. She said, yeah, he's here, and he's taking off his mask, and there's this kindly elder man who's there, and he's crying. And he says, I'm sorry I scared you. I didn't know. And I tried to save you, and I chanted all my chants and I rattled all my rattles, and they didn't work. And I'm so sorry, and I hope you can forgive me. And she's crying and I'm crying, and the doctor's crying, and she hugs him. And she says, of course, you were only doing what was best for me, and you were doing everything that you knew to do, and I appreciate that. And I'm eternal and I'm fine now. And of course, so is he. And then she came out of it, went to go have her root canal or whatever the following week, and, was not frightened at all. Not of the dentist, maybe anyway. Anyway, not the pain's another matter, I suppose. But and that was pretty amazing, just on a lot of levels, that we could cure a phobia like that. That uh, the reality of it being, oh, they're all my parents. That really struck me. Like, you couldn't make that up if you tried, I wouldn't think. So there you go.
Wow. Profound. And I'm just wondering maybe how she looked at her parents after that, if there was a change, but also how it speaks collectively how for the most of us are very rational beings, and there's usually some type of rational point of origin behind an irrational fear. And your work really helps to people, to normalize and understand that it was, it made sense as to why they felt the way that they felt, and all of a sudden they're able to really shift that and find a new engagement to look at that same thing that's in the present. So it's and the proof is in the pudding. If you say all this is made up, at the very least, her fear was gone. So I'm sure a lot of other therapists tried and stops in the train, and your one did it. So that at least is something. So very moving and very deep of a regression. Wow. Um, thank you for sharing. It was very moving, Greg. Now, Colleen, just to switch gears, you guys are both, like I said, a power couple and big stars in your own, field that has a lot of symmetry, but also has, its own unique dichotomies. But you, have your feet in two worlds. You are this big music star and performing in orchestras, and people probably know you in that world, and also whenever I throw your name out, just like Greg, everyone knows you. You're a big celebrity, and people really respect and have a high regard for the work that you do. And I personally can vouch for how uh, brilliant, of a medium that you are, and how just impactful, sensitive, spot on your delivery is, and how, easy you make it look, but it's just, it's I'm sure it's not of that. But tell us a little bit about, life as Colleen Vanderzyden and the work that you do and how you were able to really shift into becoming, a full-time medium, and then also balancing out your work with the orchestra and, having, two worlds, coexist, it seems, throughout these years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was a music teacher for 30 something years, and then performed professionally as a violinist. But I had an awakening in 2000, where I had a message that was be who you are, for who you are is blessed. And I didn't know who I was and realized I didn't like how I was living. I was stressed out, everything. And what I ended up doing, with that awakening was I wanted to learn more about myself, like who I really was. And what ended up happening is I actually reclaimed my power. And I recognized I had the power to change how I was experiencing life. And I didn't realize until it was probably 7 or 8 years later that anytime something happened, I had this strategy I went to help me feel better or handle whatever was happening. So I was always looking at my life situations as an opportunity for growth, to return to myself, if you will. And as time went on, I had these strategies and I turned them into magical mind games, which are in my book. And, one of my big passions is helping people recognize that they have the power to experience life from a different way, where life doesn't happen to them. And it all ties in with, even my mediumship abilities, that came in later. I think back, I always wanted to be a music teacher. I did it and, I performed and everything. But I think back about how I just wanted to um, be myself. And I'd spent so much time hiding, I had no idea who I was. Like, I think about who I was before I woke up. Ugh, yuck.
Mhm.
And everybody's like, "Oh, you're always smiling," and I was always smiling, and but I only knew 2 emotions, and most of it was hidden behind a smile. And so it was real interesting to take all this, and because I'd always been psychic, so I always had that part happening. Even as a child, I was psychic,
Wow.
but I wasn't a medium as a child. I didn't see spirits or anything like that as a child. And so as part of my reclaiming myself, I recognized the psychic part came out, the intuitive part came out, and I recognized that's actually who I really was. And as part of it was to become a medium, the other part was to teach people how to get out of their way, basically.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's a real interesting, and that's how my book came about. Is to, like step one, to get back to yourself. You actually have the power of choice. You're
Mhm.
always making a choice. Is it an authentic choice or not? And then deciding. So, for some people who are interested in living a better life and want to be themselves, um, I I can help them.
Yeah.
And then other people, they're just that's not their thing.
And Jacob, as a therapist, you bump into this so bad too. It's like I've had a zillion clients that have said something like, "I don't know who I am. I've been so busy trying to be what everybody else wants me to be. I don't I don't even know who well, do you like this? I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that question."
Mm.
Yeah,
And I think Colleen's work is so important because it takes them back at one level who you are at your core of your personality, and then at a deeper level who you are as an expression of your soul.
exactly. So it's like step 1 to me is getting them to recognize who they are in the physical life, and then we go deeper into who are you as a soul, and how can you live as your soul?
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing the most of these days. Still talking to a lot of dead people. So
Right. Well, I mean, does talking to the deceased, has that given you more information on how to live and how to help clients live, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I was so surprised, I when I went into mediumship, I had great teachers and I had a natural ability for it apparently, which I didn't know.
Mhm.
But I was so surprised at some of the things they would say, the spirits would say. And I don't literally hear them in my head. It's like words pop into my head or I just know things. And one of the things I noticed that I was so surprised at was whenever we were talking, they always wanted to convey to their person how much they loved them, and they always talked about the time they spent with them and what they did. And they always talked about how much they wanted us to have fun here, even though they're on the other side. They're like, "We want you to have a good time. You wanna have fun," and people always say to me, "Do they miss me?" And I just it's such a weird question to me. I'm like, "Well, how can they miss you? They're right next to you." They don't miss you, you miss them, so it's kind of a projection thing, of course, because they love them, they miss them, they're hoping the spirit feels the same. So all of those things were such a surprise to me. I had no real preconceived notions what spirit would tell me. And so it was everything was a surprise. I was like, "Oh, so wait, you didn't mention your job at all." And then, like, duh, right? And and they just always talked about how much they love their people and they want us to have fun and enjoy our time here. And that was huge surprise.
Wow. You guys obviously come from similar yet, at times distinct vantage points. When it comes to grief, when it comes to those who have lost loved ones, um, how could people relate to it from, yes, you have the mediumship, the life coach orientation, and also Greg has the hard therapist perspective as well. How could people relate to grief from your own experience, from the human as well as the soul level? What do you feel is an effective way to go about it? Like, should you bypass this human stuff? Should you just connect to spirit? Should you, have feelings and just try to just push them away and focus on the good? Like, what do you feel is a good way to really go through grief from, and how could we really, if so, work with those two realms together, with the spiritual and the raw human part?
Yeah. I think what you said last is really, really important for people to remember. If one swing of the pendulum is, "Oh my gosh, I've lost this person and my life is over," and I'll never be the same, and now I have to be in misery from now till the day I die. And
Mhm,
and and the other is, "Well, they're in a better place.
mhm,
I'll just be happy."
right,
Um, Obviously, those are two swings of the pendulum. I like this idea of oscillation, which is one of the newer theories in grief, which is that we need to acknowledge those feelings. Yes, that person may live on in spirit, but I can't hug them. Okay, I can't pet my dog that died with my physical hands. I may be able to see them in a powerful dream, or I may feel their presence in another way, but I don't have that, and I need to be aware of that and allow those emotions to come up, allow them to be attended to, allow other people to comfort me, allow my higher power to comfort me, pray, journal, whatever. And then on the other hand, there needs to be some breaks, because if we just kind of live in that awareness of the loss constantly and make camp in it, it's like our lives are going to be miserable. And so literally it's like, okay, and now I'm going to go for a walk, and now I'm going to have dinner with my friends. So that, as one theorist says, don't let what you've lost take away what you still have.
mhm,
So what are those things that still make your life worth living? And what are those things that are still beautiful? And finding that balance. And again, one of the newer techniques for dealing with grief, there's some new research at North Texas State. I talk about it in the book, The Quickening. There's a new technique called induced after death communication. And I won't get wonky, so my wife won't slug me. But very briefly, it allows to induce a state of consciousness where the client can have direct contact or apparent direct contact with the person who's crossed over. I'm not acting as a medium in these sessions in induced after death communication, catalyzing a state of mind that is not hypnosis, where they have an internal visionary experience or an internal contact with the person who's crossed. This brings them enormous comfort and can go a long way to begin to healing the grief.
And on a spiritual kind of level, I think so many people who are on a spiritual path think that, we can rise above the grief and not experience it, which is basically bypassing the emotions. And I always tell people we have to feel our emotions, we have to experience them. And I also tell people too, if they call me for a reading, this happens periodically throughout the year. My mother died this morning. Can I have a reading now? And I'm like, no. Absolutely not. Because what if their mother doesn't come in? What if another person comes in instead? What if it's just not the right time for the mother to show up? And
Mhm.
so we have to experience those physical human emotions. We absolutely have to. But knowing too, from my perspective, knowing that my people are on the other side, knowing that my people are still around makes a huge difference to me. I had a friend who said, "Well, once you die, that's it. You're done and we'll never see you again." And I that was just so jarring to me in such a way because I've always known our spirit people are around. It does not replace their physical presence, and I'll say that to people on occasion, "Isn't it great to feel them?" And I can sometimes literally embody the spirit and act like them, look them, sound like them. That happens on occasion, not a lot, thank goodness, because it kind of freaks some people out sometimes. But, I can do that, and isn't it nice to have those moments where you can feel that they are there? It's not the same as the physical, but it's awful wonderful. It's wonderful to
Mhm.
experience.
It's the best that we have to work with, and yeah, it's a I think there's a big relationship with belief and grief, and when people are having the ability to have this knowing that they can get from, the IDC or from your work, it could really give people the tools to really formulate an opinion of, that aren't just boxed in. So you're really offering a lot to people. So that is wonderful. Now, obviously, you guys are, located in a very unique place, a very world-renowned place, in Lilydale, where, as they say, no one ever dies, and I had the, privilege of around a year ago to meet you guys in person there, presenting there, but, for you guys, what kinda drew you to Lilydale, and how does that maybe shift um, your practice or spiritual orientation, and what's it like just kinda being, residential medium and, Greg, living there and doing his life-changing work over there?
Yeah, I moved out here to Western New York to go to music school at the local college, SUNY
Mhm.
Fredonia. And so as I was here, I heard about Lilydale, but I didn't know much about it. And then a colleague told me about Lilydale, and I came over here, went to church, starting at about the same time I woke up, about the same year, I'm pretty sure it was.
Mhm.
And I felt as soon as I went into the church, it just felt like the right place. Like I'd been looking for this place my whole life, and I didn't know I'd been looking for it. And so I became very involved in the church and came over here regularly. And then I started doing workshops here, giving workshops here. And then I became a registered medium, went through that whole process and became a registered medium. And then when my house sold in 2020, I had no place to go. So I moved into my teeny little house that I had here then, and then bought another house in Lilydale. And I love living here. It's so quiet. It's dead, man. And you know, it's quiet, and
Channeling some Greg over there, yeah, yeah.
But in a nice way.
Yeah,
and it's gorgeous. We've got a lake, we've got an old growth forest, we've got places to walk, and in the summer, we have a summer season, of course, where people come from all over the world. Well, used to be all over the world. I don't know about this year,
Huh?
but all over the world will come and give workshops or come for readings or
Mhm.
to just be in the space. And it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And you like it now. First time he came, it was in winter, and he's like, "I don't understand what's so great about it."
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, the homes here, the entire village is on the National Register of Historic Places. So, as you may remember, there's all these amazing Victorian homes, and of course, the Leolland Woods, an old growth forest where nothing has been cut down for it has to remain untouched by law for the last 200 years. It's just spectacular, and we're right here on the lake, and it doesn't hurt. I don't think it bothers you too much that Janet Nohavec, the famous
No,
psychic and one of or medium and one of your teachers, used to live in
in
the
this house.
in the house that we live in.
Yeah,
So
so
it really is beautiful and historic. And of course, to be a part of the summer programs, as you know, we are Suzanne Giesman, your friend, as I recall, is going to be here even
later this month.
preseason later this month. Colleen will be presenting this summer. I'll be presenting a bunch this summer on all these different topics. So it's fun to be a part of the summer programs here too.
yeah. And anyone listening, I couldn't recommend visiting Lilydale any higher, particularly seeing Colleen and Gregg. They're both sensational at what they do, and I just couldn't recommend them anymore. So do check out the Lilydale. It is a place there's no other comparison to it, really. It's a heaven on earth in so many ways. One of my final questions before we get into the tour that you do is I know we spoke a little bit about The Quickening, which is a great book, and I loved every part of it. And I just wanted to just ask Colleen because um, didn't get a chance to really talk about her book at all. Well, a little bit, but I would like to highlight a little bit more as to for you, how did you get courageously you, out there, and just what was the calling? And for viewers, interested in purchasing the book, like what's it about?
It's really a whole bunch of strategies to help people reclaim their power and recognize how amazing and wonderful they are, really. And it comes out of that time after I woke up and I realized I had all these different ways to feel better. So it's ways to learn more about ourselves, and it's also ways to handle life situations, strengthening our authenticity, strengthening our power. And my intention in creating it was that I wanted it to be a book that people could refer to and go back to. Like, so if I pick up my book, like even to this day, I'll pick it up and I'll start reading. I go, hey, that's actually pretty good. So somebody must have been helping me write it. So, some spirit or something. So I have these magical mind games that they can look at depending on the circumstance I'm going to see. So here's one called word awareness. When you're enmeshed in fear, complaints, or excuses, feeling powerless or unworthy, then you become aware of your disempowering words. Reclaim your power, substitute I won't for I can't, and explore the source of your excuses, eliminate words that undermine you or your power. So they're very simple, easy strategies that can be implemented. And I've had so many people tell me that it's made a difference and it's changed their lives. And so now I have coaching programs based on that, on the book, a course where I teach people how to do it. And then my guide steps in and gives further information. And so I have coaching programs based on that now. And it's been really amazing to use the book as a foundation for helping people live their
No,
best lives. Yeah, pretty cool.
it
Yeah, I think
it
empowering
must be
people with the
it.
right
Yeah.
I was just gonna say empowering people with the right tools, why not use a power saw, instead of a kitchen knife on something? It's something I talk about in The Quickening, and I think that's what your book does is like, instead of life happening to you and I have no power and all these horrible things, if only there was a way out. It goes, "No, you can be proactive in your life and use these techniques and ideas and in ways that empower you and allow you to be more courageously you."
Yeah, and the more intentional people are, and the more they choose to even step into the fear, the happier they become. And life becomes more peaceful. And so I always say to people on my podcast that, my answer to everything is be more of you. How are you not being you? And let's fix that and make you be more of you. Because when you do that, life is so much better. So much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. I love it. And one of the biggest regrets of those who are about to cross over is that they were someone else's version of who they wanted them to be. And they followed the societal norms, the parental expectations, and they just weren't true to themselves. So that's beautiful. Yeah. Hey, Greg, it's something to say.
What's that?
No, I thought you
Alright.
had something to say, but
No,
never.
no, oh,
We're
no, I
like,
was just I'm just agreeing with it. I think it's so sad that
yep.
people surrender their identity and I understand why. People wanna be loved, or they're afraid they'll be disapproved of by their parents or their culture. I mean, you probably see this all the time in your practice too, Jake. So it's just sad, but it doesn't have to be that way, and it doesn't matter what age you are, it can start changing today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having helpers, somebody to help you along the way. I always tell people my book is a shortcut. Coaching will help you further shortcut it. So it won't take them as long as it took me to understand all this, and it did take a while for me
Right.
to get
For all of us, yeah.
it.
It seems like you used a lot of your own personal experiences to really influence your orientation, your purpose. And certainly, I feel spirit gets us to walk through these things, not just for ourselves, but to be able to relate to people on those same paths that we were on and better understand it. So, it's really amazing that you're walking the full spiritual path here. really walking into something and walking through it differently and utilizing it for those who might be, a couple steps behind. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always turn everything back on myself and go, "Okay, what am I learning from this? What do I need to do differently?" You know?
Yeah.
Mm.
God forbid you should have make the mistakes that we did, so we'll save you some time.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. That's a part of the quickening and working smarter, not harder in a way. But
Yeah.
it's yeah. I know you guys are always up to good, no not no good. You're always up to really great things. Is there anything, coming down the pipeline for you guys, like book-wise, workshop-wise, projects, or retreats coming up, like anything brewing there with the 2 of you?
Well, let's see. I've got my coaching program. The Courageously program starts in January. I'm hoping to do another Transcendence Soul Coaching in the fall. We'll see if I get that together organized. Soul Empowerment Community will be opening up any minute, literally.
Yes.
And what else? We got lots of workshops this summer.
Yeah, listeners will want to go to lilydaleassembly.org to find out what, Colleen and I are up to this summer, along with, the new age artist, double Grammy Award winner Peter Cater is gonna be out here. Who are some of the other people? We're having an Edgar Cayce weekend, a Course in Miracles weekend. Some really powerful teachers are going to be out here. And of course, just enjoying the grounds. And for those of you that are new to Lilydale, what is it? Is it 4 times a day? There's an opportunity for you to receive a gallery
Three
reading
times.
3 times
Three
a
times a
day.
day.
A
Well, plus church. So
plus
I guess
church,
four.
yeah,
Yeah.
a gallery reading, and these are given. They're an active service by the registered mediums here in Lilydale. It's really a beautiful gift, and they're free with a gate fee. I think what is it, $10 or $15, something like that.
$15 the
Yeah,
gate fee. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so, a lot of Lilydale stuff happening now. We're gearing up for that, and then our own personal stuff and coaching programs and the classes we teach in the community, and I
And
don't
for
even know what else.
people that are really committed, we are looking at a larger, more intensive program, with a very limited number of people that's very exclusive that will work really directly and deeply, sort of bring all our talents, mediumship, therapy, all the goodies, all the fun stuff that we talk about in the book, we'll bring to them and work in a really intense session. So we're working with some people on that, and we're not quite ready to announce, but we're headed in the right direction for people that really want to go way, way deep.
Love it. And what's the best way for people to find a connection to the participation in the soul empowerment community, as well as to get in touch with the 2 of you, for maybe a regression session, hypnosis session, a therapy session, or you, Colleen, to get life coaching session, an intuitive session, mediumship session? You guys have your websites. I know we're going to be listing them, but just remind us, like, what would be the best way to get in touch with the 2 of you for any classes or individual sessions?
For me, it's ColleenVanderzyden.com, or BeCourageouslyYou.com, same thing. Um, and
Yeah,
and that's where the community is. The community website page is there as well. So ColleenVanderzyden.com/soul empowerment community.
yep.
Yep.
And my website, GreggUnterberger.com, it should be up and running. It's been in the shop, but by the time this gets out there, it should be open and running and give details about upcoming events, how to contact me directly for individual sessions such as IADC or past life regression, spiritual activation, some of the things that I talk about in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And Colleen, I know you have a big Facebook page as well. So do really encourage people to check out both of you on social media and your websites as well. Any last messages coming to you for the viewers? I mean, obviously there's a lot going on right now. Anything that spirit is kind of, just kind of messaging to you recently or just today that's in your consciousness, or you feel like whatever was needed to be said was said during this conversation. You could just drop the mic or, whatever you're holding on to. Yeah.
I would say the biggest message I'm getting these days from spirit, etc., is that we need to protect our energy. and we need to stay in our power, and we need to check in with ourselves so that we know what is true for us and not blindly follow other people without investigating ourselves. And so we have to be very aware of our energy now and not overgive, and be very intentional on how we use our energy, who we want to talk to, what we want to say, what we want to do, etc. That's the message I've been getting for a bit of time now.
Well, and this is right alongside of that. I keep coming back to the very practical wisdom that's in the Serenity Prayer. What are the things that we can change? And then let's be proactive and take steps to make those changes. So, whether that's politically, whether that's socially, culturally, spiritually, what are the things that you can do? And focus on doing those, because it's empowering to do those. And then accepting the things that we can't, even if it's, well, for the moment, it's like this. And so I'm going to have to accept this, and I can bang my head against the wall wishing it were different and make myself miserable. But instead, for the moment, I have to accept things as they are in this way. And a lot of peace can come out of that, because you're empowered when you're working on something. When you're accepting what you can't change, you are literally living in reality. Okay, I don't like this, but it is the way it is, and I can waste a lot of time worrying about it, or I can go be proactive or go enjoy my life in the meantime, so that I have energy to take those steps in the direction that I want to take.
Love it. Love it. Colleen Vanderzyden, Gregg Unterberger, you're both a wonderful soul family to me, and it's just inspiring to see the differences that you're, doing individually and collectively. And I am so glad the universe has been able to cross your paths, and it's, we have all benefited from the work that you two are doing, and we're just very excited to see, this evolutionary process and where things go. So thank you so much for doing all that you do. And I really do encourage viewers to really get in touch with Colleen and Gregg. They have so much to offer, and I know, everyone's going to find something that will really help out themselves along their paths, and they have endless gems and talents to offer, anyone interested. So thank you so much for your generous time, and do please check them out, as well as Lilydale as well. Thank you so much, the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was a wonderful conversation with a true power couple that is really making a difference in today's world. I really was able to learn so much from Greg and Colleen, and I'm so blessed and honored to be a part of their path. They play such a pivotal role in my life and so many others. So I do strongly encourage you to check out all of their work, particularly the soul empowerment community, where you could really belong to a wonderful, growing, enlightening group that will bring you a lot of great eclectic information to really broaden your understanding of the spirit realm and how to apply it over here. So, thank you all for tuning in and ascending the rungs of Jacob's ladder. And thank you, Colleen and Gregg, for your generous time. We'll see you here next time on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Have a great day.